All right, so here's my question for you.
Okay.
You're driving around Los Angeles
Yeah.
and your car breaks down.
Okay.
You get one of three calls. Do you call AAA? Do you call your mechanic? Or do you call Tim Waltz?
He's got the big dad energy, that's for sure. He's got there was somebody who said his financial disclosures included the jar of screws in his garage that are still good.
It's just of course I didn't know anything about him beforehand, so I'm just trying to figure out, okay, who is this guy and the whole thing. But the little tutorials that he does is really important. Like, here's how you fix this thing with the carburetor or whatever, and so remember to go vote.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is dad power times 10. It's really
he is a walking sort of just big dad energy.
Yeah. So you would call Tim Waltz then?
Of course, yeah, of course. He's gonna hook us up.
Okay, if that ever happens, you got to record it. That would be fantastic.
Just remember, everybody has your story to tell. Tell it well. Untitled Marketing.
And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Pulizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome to This Old Marketing, proudly brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. I'm Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 440 for Friday, August 9th, 2024. And with me, as always, is my pal, my colleague, and a guy who single-handedly crashed the stock market this week, Mr. Joe Pulizzi.
Were you watching that? Were you watching your portfolio?
I didn't. I actually closed the app and said I'm not even going to look at it this week. I just went nope. I just noped right out of it.
It was due. I mean, it's not surprising. It was due for a little correction.
Oh,
Any
of course.
kind of bad news. Was and it's interesting to see. Oh my God, the economy, frankly, is in really, really good shape.
Yeah.
But I mean, here's the thing.
I was listening to one analyst who and of course the mainstream news catastrophizes everything.
Yep.
It's like, what does this mean? What does this mean for the recession? And the analyst was like, it was an economist from Harvard, and he goes, well, let's see. The last three jobs reports have been A's, and this job report was a B, and the market had a toxic freak out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, so yeah.
But when you talk to people, see, here's the thing about like when you read something and you watch it, the ones that watch it, like if you watch it on social media or you watch it on like regular news talking about the stock market crash, it's such a difference. Like I know right away, oh, you're watching television. That's why you're freaking out. It's the same thing with politics, right? I could tell right away. It's like, oh my God, can you believe that they're doing this and that and the other? I'm like,
right.
You're watching the nightly news, aren't you? Like, let's not do that. Let's read it. Form your own opinion. Because if you just took the data for what it was and even the stuff going on in Japan, you're like, oh, okay, this is understandable. I see why the market's just taking a little bit of breather here. But everybody's got to and that's what I mean, of course. That's what the media is supposed to do.
Well, I mean,
because they're trying to sell ads and they want to catastrophize the whole thing.
That's right. So. That's right. I mean, there is some interesting, but the funny thing is that the stuff in Japan has been going on for a long time. I mean, this is
since the 80s.
Even longer than that. But yeah, I mean, just even of late, over the last couple of years, they are, they're over leveraged, and they have. They've got an aging population, and they're not replenishing it with young people, and it's Japan is in trouble, broadly speaking from an economic standpoint, but that doesn't have very much at all to do with what's going on in the U.S. right now.
Yeah, it's just on totally off the topic, but you ever listen to the CEO podcast from that I forgot his first name, Bartlett is his last name?
No.
Anyways, I'll find something or see something and I'll listen to a podcast. But I was listening to one doctor that was on his show, and she was saying people aren't talking about it, but the biggest issue that's going to happen around the world in the next 50 to 60 years is the significant population decline. And I never thought about that. And she says, just look at the stats and look at where everyone's going. There's going to be country after country that's actually going to decrease population over
That's
the
right.
next decade after decade. And it's like we're not set we're not set up for that from an economic production standpoint. There's gonna be some issues there. I just don't, I didn't know that was a thing, and I didn't even know that how much more difficult it is for people that actually want to have kids to have them today. I don't, once you get by that point, all of our friends we've already had those people that are going to have kids have already had kids. So you don't think about it anymore. We're not in that group where you have families that are trying to have kids and some of the difficulty surrounding that. I just wasn't aware. So
yeah, it's especially in Asia Pacific, right? I mean, the Asian countries, especially, they have an aging population, and they're not creating enough young people to replenish that aging population. And so it's really hard to care for the aging population if you don't have the young people to sort of fill in the gaps.
Speaking of aging population, what's with the purple shirt, man?
What do you mean? Are you? I'm usually supposed to be in black.
No. I've been seeing a lot of purple. Of course, I watch Barney on a regular basis.
Okay.
So of course, I was thinking about that. No,
Yeah.
it's funny because I just saw the post where Tim Waltz, not to big him up again, but he dedicated the road to Prince. And I wasn't aware of this, that Prince has a road dedicated in Minnesota.
Yes. Yeah.
And Tim Waltz, to do that dedication, wore purple shirt, purple tie. It was really nice, actually. So I didn't know if you were doing it in honor of the great one.
I was not. I am not doing it, and nor am I doing it in honor of Minnesota, although Minnesota is having a moment just about now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll talk a little bit about this when we get to the show, but somebody I saw a tweet that said, basically, with Tim Waltz, the success of the Timberwolves, all we need now is for Prince to come back and say, just kidding. And basically Minnesota's revival will be complete.
Speaking of that, in that genre, if you will, last week we saw MJ, the musical, not Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson. Did I talk about this already with you?
You did not. No, you did not.
So I got to tell you,
I didn't even know there was an MJ.
There's
musical.
MJ, the musical, and it's about Michael Jackson growing up from the Jackson 5 and his relationship with his parents and all the things that he had to do to break through, to become, basically to get the Thriller.
Okay.
And to get to Thriller and the bad and the Dangerous tour. And that it doesn't go past that. For obvious reasons, I was a little bit tentative because of some of the things that happened at the allegations and all that with surrounding Michael Jackson.
Well,
but
sure. All right.
But the music was incredible. The show was, and if there's any truth to it at all, I could see. I mean, it frankly, amazing content marketing effort behind Michael Jackson's brand, if you will, because it doesn't say that he's not guilty of these things. What it shows you is what him and his father's relationship was and what it did to him.
Well, if you want to call it that, I mean,
well, it's trouble
for sure.
Yeah, if any of that was real, which if you just read some things and go back, and it seems like his dad was just a horrible, horrible person toward him. And
his dad was a horrible, horrible person to the whole family. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
His dad was just an awful person,
especially especially Tito. Tito was the one that got the brunt.
Yeah,
the brunt, or was it Jermaine? I don't know. It was
all of them. It was all of them. And and they were, they were pressured and so much of that is that sort of, they have a word for it here in Los Angeles. You've got your stage moms, right? Or stage dads, right? Which are those parents that pressure their children to, basically get into the business and succeed in the business. and the pressure that's put on these kids is incredible. And in fact, now they have in California, there are laws that have been set with how parents manage the money of children in this profession, and also what they can actually do and what they can actually do on set. And there's all sorts of laws now that sort of protect kids a lot more than certainly when Michael Jackson was, young.
And you're going to need that too, especially, and we'll talk about a lot of this stuff, but the younger creators out there as well. It's, they come into the limelight, they get celebrity status, they start getting money at a younger age. There's a lot of things that just, it would happen few and far between back in the day. Oh, you had Michael Jackson, or you had then Britney Spears and some other things but now it's happening all the time with these young creators that, get their 15 minutes of fame and they're trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah.
Where do they go from there?
Yeah.
But so anyways, that was interesting. And then
good stuff.
And then we have to say that Deadpool and Wolverine is the #1 grossing R-rated
seen it
movie
yet still,
of
and
all time.
I have to go see it.
Do you not
if
have
only
theaters in Hollywood? Why have you not gotten
because I mean
show?
I haven't been to the movie theater in a long time. I mean, I just and not because I'm, concerned about getting sick or COVID or anything like that. I just haven't been. I just haven't.
Is it how close are you to a theater?
It's less than a mile. I mean, yeah.
You could walk there.
I literally could. I could literally walk there. I'm very close to the movie theater, but I just haven't been. I mean,
we haven't talked to you about any of these spoiler things. I've been waiting to talk to you about this movie, and I can't.
I know.
But we can talk about.
I'm starting to know more and more and more. It's very hard to not see the news items, about this cameo and that cameo and this cameo.
A lot of cameos.
Like, all right,
yeah. I think actually the group Cameo did a cameo.
cameo. That would have been funny. That's a good bit. That's a good bit.
That is a good bit. Anyways, I mean, outside of it being extremely raunchy, probably 10 on the raunchiness scale, really funny, really good entertainment, and it passed, and I didn't realize it. Do you know what the #1 R-rated movie before Deadpool and Wolverine was?
Oh boy, I'm trying to guess.
And it's going to be about 25 years ago.
25 years ago would have been
a long-standing record.
God, I don't know.
That's okay. The Passion of the Christ.
Really?
Mm-hmm. With
there's Dafoe. That's a little bit of a different genre.
Yeah, you kind of went a different direction on that. The exact
different
opposite. Yeah, a little bit. So I saw that and I'm like, because it was something like $340 million domestic or whatever it was, and they passed by that this last weekend.
It sort of tells you where we are.
We're in a totally different place in society right now, where you have the list there. Yeah, it's all good. All right, so
very good.
What do we have going on?
There's been a lot of news this week. Some of it in the marketing realm. Certainly much to talk about in all kinds of things, but we are going to restrict to really what we've been talking about here, media and marketing and whatnot, and some of it's impacted into other areas. We're going to open up by talking about Google and how this week, in a shock to absolutely no one, they've been considered now a monopoly. So we'll talk a little bit about the impact of that. Then we'll talk about Twitter or X or whatever you like, and how they are now suing major brands for not advertising on their platform, which seems interesting. But meanwhile, X, you'll advertise it on whether you want to or not, right? We'll talk about how Google ads have now made their appearance on X and surprising some brands who were advertising on Google. We'll talk about the Paris Olympics as they start to wind down and how it's really become the TikTok show more than anything else. And if time, we probably won't get time, but we'll talk about how the U.S. government might be suing TikTok over some of the content that they've been putting up of late. We'll get to our winners and losers, of course. I'm going to give the winner to Kamala and her social media team and talk about how they've just been crushing it. Joe is going to talk about a loser and how the U.S. military has created a campaign with The Rock and signed up exactly 0 recruits. Then we'll get to Rants and Raves, and I'm going to rave a little bit about the Olympics and just sort of do a mea culpa on how unexcited I was for the Olympics and how much I enjoyed them this year. And Joe is going to, I guess, provide a little bit of commentary on employee creators and where that sits in the world today. So, as we like to say here, a cornucopia, a chock-a-block full show that we will get to.
Oh, by the way, did you see all the commentary we got back on Nudge?
I did.
Which
did.
Yeah. By the way, what was it? Last episode or 2 ago where you said nudge and I was like, nudge, is that even a word? Well, it is.
Yeah.
Because 37 people emailed us and said,
yes,
and here's how you use it in a sentence, and here's how I used it growing up. Thank you to all you.
Yes, thank you to all
wonderful people.
Yes,
for letting
you're
us
all
know.
You're all nudges. You're all nudges for nudging us on the word nudge.
So good. So
good. All right, fantastic. Well, speaking of nudge, Google has been a nudge to the U.S. government for some time, and now, well, finally, I guess, is the right way to say this, and this courtesy come of CNN, although every major news outlet is reporting on this. Google has an illegal monopoly on search, says a judge, and here's what comes next. The article opens up by saying Google has violated U.S. antitrust law with its search business. A federal judge ruled on Monday, that's Monday of this week as we record, handing the tech giant a staggering court defeat with the potential to reshape how millions of Americans get information online and to upend decades of dominance. Wow, there's no hyperbole at all in that sentence. All right. After having carefully considered and weighed the witness testimony and evidence, said the U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta, the court reaches the following conclusion. Google is a monopolist and it has acted as one to maintain its monopoly. It has violated Section 2 of the Sherman Act. The decision by the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia is a stunning rebuke of Google's oldest and most important business. The company spent tens of billions of dollars on exclusive contracts to secure a dominant position as the world's default search provider on smartphones and web browsers. And it goes on to basically forecast all the ideas about where Bing might end up, DuckDuckGo, other browsers, other search engines, et cetera, et cetera. What say you to all this? I mean, it seems like all of the news is jumping on this is the biggest monster since Godzilla. So, I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, it's an article about the obvious.
Yeah.
And that's, and by the way,
that should be the title of the show.
Oh my God, yes. How many shows could we do? When you're a company that is one of the largest, most influential companies in the world, you absolutely want to do whatever you can to keep that status. That's what I mean, whether you say it's a monopoly or not, that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So you inherently do the things to make sure you keep your leading position. Of course you would. Then the issue in this case is they have such dominance that it looks and feels and acts like a monopoly. Now, I only think there's going to be one thing that happens here, and I want to get your take on it.
Sure.
I only think there might be a slap on the wrist penalty in the form of whatever money it is, but I think the real thing is that Google will not be allowed to be the default search engine on Apple devices anymore. I think that's it. And
Android. I would include Android.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing that happens. And I don't know how that works. Is that if you go and like when you initially boot up your iOS, whether you get a choice of which
you can
one
switch
you want,
it now.
What Firefox whatever. Bing.
You can switch it now in both. You can right now today as we speak. Assuming you have the newest version of iOS, you can already switch it.
I'm just saying, but it's the default. You have to actively go and that's the difference, right? It's like
that's the difference.
And you have choice on everything. But if this is almost a point in time event, because I think 2 years from now this would not be the case because more and more people are using AI tools, like ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever the case is for their search instead of Google. So like if you look at Google search and their competitive set 3 years ago, oh, you're like, oh my God, of course. They're dominating. There's no, I mean, they are monopoly. You look at it now. I don't know if you can make that case now.
Yeah.
Because user behaviors change so much. I don't know. I want to get your take on that.
So, well, I'll give you my take, but I think also sort of the real headline here is how much this affects Apple. I didn't realize that mobile search on Google is something like 53%, maybe almost 60% of all searches, of all internet searches. So
it happens on a mobile device.
And of that, most of it is Apple. Most of it is on Apple, and so this is a big deal for Apple. And they've been getting a deal from Google for forever, it feels like, but it's certainly the last number of years, and paying, by the way, I think $20+ billion a year to have Google as the default search. I mean, Google's been paying Apple, I should say, to be the default search on Apple devices. And the question immediately, so first of all, it answers one big question that we actually talked about on the show like 2 weeks ago, which is, why would Apple make a deal with OpenAI on their AI instead of Google? Well, this answers a big question. They were sort of seeing this coming, and they're like, we need to make a deal with someone who's not going to be removed from our devices. And I think the interesting thing is where does Apple go from here? Does Apple, if ultimately the remedy here, and the remedies have not been sort of, as far as I can see, remedies have not been sort of predicted or in any way recommended by the court. And by the way, Google has immediately appealed this decision, and it'll go to the appeals court for sure.
Sure. It'll take another 2 years.
Yeah. So, right. So you're talking another year or two at least before any of this becomes a reality of any consequence. But I don't know where they go. I don't know do they develop their own search engine? Do they, because I agree with you. I think that's really the only remedy. The Android thing is obvious because of Google's control over the Android operating system and the devices therein. And so
I think I think it's real easy. I don't think it's a big deal. I think there's just a remedy where you go on and you're switching over one phone to the other. And as you do that selection process where you've got to do certain things or take a picture of your face and all that, it says, here, you have a choice. What is your default search engine? Choose here. And that the money that they get, so they get they get $28 billion or some crazy number they get from Google every year, they will get that back in the aggregate. They will get that a little bit from Microsoft and Bing. They'll get a little bit from OpenAI. They'll get a little bit from somewhere else. They'll still get that money. That's right. It'll just show differently. It's just not from one source.
Yeah, they'll just have to figure out a way to measure it by it's not unlike the streaming networks, right? Having to figure out their the way that they pay their content providers for streaming, right? Is just like how many searches are done on each, and they'll have to make deals with all of them in order to be viable, which I think is fine. I mean, as a user, great, fine. It doesn't matter to me really. I mean, what comes out of this. I do think, however, the other thing that's worth noting is what happened with. So that one of the things that the mainstream news is really sort of all over is, it's just like Microsoft when Microsoft was ordered to break up. Well, let's remember Microsoft didn't break up and didn't have to sort of break out their computer operating system division from their browser, from anything, right? They didn't have to break apart the company at all. They ultimately reached a settlement with the government something like 8 years later, after the consent decree and all sorts of things that they had to go through, which ultimately basically just said, what do you have to open up? You have to open up your operating system for other developers to come in and build things on your platform, which of course they did. And the interesting thing to me was, if you look at the story of Internet Explorer, which was at the heart of all this, right? The heart of everything is that they were building Internet Explorer into the operating system of
default search
Microsoft,
engine,
and
yeah.
that was everybody's toxic freak out, right? Was that, oh, it's built into, you can't, Netscape, you can't get Netscape. Well, here we are 24 years later. Netscape is gone. Internet Explorer is gone. All of it sort of went away, and who took over? It was Google, and basically Google building
I like Edge though. I like Microsoft. It's not Internet Explorer. It's called Edge now, and it's like when I'm feeling dangerous, I go and use Edge.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Or something to that.
Here's the question for you. Here's the question for you.
All right.
And I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
Waltz, right? Our new vice presidential candidate.
Sure.
Windows guy or Mac guy?
Oh, I would say Windows guy.
I'm almost positive. Yeah. Almost assured.
I would say he's Windows guy, but does have an iPhone. But it's
I think that's true.
It's like a iPhone 8 or something like that, or maybe it's like the SE where it still has the home button you can.
It's
press.
Still got a button on it. Yeah.
Yes, that's exact. We got to find the answer to this.
Yeah,
I think that's exactly.
I guarantee you, he's a Windows guy with an iPhone. I think that is.
That's a good question.
There you go. Hey, well, speaking of Windows phones and iPhones and Mac guy, we should probably do a little bit of our own. I mean, we are a monopoly after all. In the podcast,
are we monopolizing content marketing and media news?
That's exactly
nobody else
right.
covers it the way we do. That's
right.
Sure.
So let's introduce a little competition and pay some bills.
AI tools are completely taking over marketing. I mean, seriously, AI usage has increased 53% since last year. And how do I know that? Well, I know that because I just read HubSpot's latest AI Trends for Marketers report. It's a goldmine of insights and covers everything from the challenge marketers are facing to the AI tools they're using right now to crush their goals. And that's just scratching the surface. You want to know more? Go to HubSpot.com/marketing to download it for free. Are you looking for a new podcast that makes marketing simple? Well, why not make it simple and follow Marketing Made Simple, hosted by Dr. J.J. Peterson and brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network. Marketing Made Simple brings you practical tips to make your marketing easy and, more importantly, make it work. Like a recent episode called Getting Unstuck, your website's secret flaws and how to find them, Marketing Made Simple makes things simple and helps you make marketing work. You can find Marketing Made Simple wherever you follow your favorite podcasts.
First song that you play, I've been listening to it just at random, just because I like it so much. That's how good. Is that Suno? Is that, I forgot.
Yeah. Remember I was telling you
Suno?
last week, my prompt for Suno was a rap song that Joe Pulizzi would like.
That's right.
And it worked out. It worked out really well. And as I told you, the first time I did it and I forgot to switch off the thing that says switch off lyrics. I should send you. I didn't, and I told you I would last.
Well, then
week.
we'll play it next time. We'll play it. Send it to me. We'll load it up. I'll play it.
Play the one with the lyrics to it. Yeah.
I use Suno for the. Is it Suno? Sono? What is it? Is it Suno?
I don't ever remember.
Am I saying it right?
It's bad. It's a horrible name because nobody can remember if it's Sono or Suno or Sonu.
Whatever. I used it for the first time because of your Facebook post on because we did our Orange Effect Foundation Golf for Autism 18th annual.
That's
and we
right.
had the picture of the four of us. I was going to say a different word, but 4 of us guys having fun on the course. And you said that the name of that group should be
Putt Stuff.
Foreplay?
Yeah. Putt and Stuff.
Oh.
The name of the group is Putt and Stuff.
Oh, yes. And the name of the album is
Foreplay. Yeah.
And then I went and put in a song like if I was I'm on the golf course and I'm having a tough time putting, but I'm a boy band, how would I sound? And then I loaded up the song.
It was pretty good.
It really is.
It was pretty good.
If you need something quick and dirty and you don't really care very much and it's kind of you want cute, it works great.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. If you don't care about the quality and you don't
care about the quality and you're just like, it's great
good.
For jokes.
Exactly.
It's great for, I want to send this to my buddy because he's an idiot and I'm going to say
exactly right.
It's perfect for that.
It's exactly right.
Speaking of idiots.
Speaking of idiots, let's talk about X. Yeah, so this courtesy coming of the marketingbrew.com, although again, many news outlets reporting on this. X this week has filed suit against advertisers and industry groups over alleged boycott. The article opens up by saying last year, Elon Musk told advertisers to go F themselves, then tried wooing them at the Cannes Lion Festival, and now X is suing them. They seem to have a little bit of a love-hate relationship going
you
on here.
think?
It's a little bit like my high school girlfriend. Anyway, on Tuesday, ex-CEO Linda Yaccarino, she posted in an open
Yaccarino.
letter to advertisers. By the way, there's a video that goes along with this, is just as cringy. That the platform has filed an antitrust lawsuit against two of the most prominent advertising industry trade groups, the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, GARM, and the World Federation of Advertisers, the WFA, which sounds like a wrestling league to me. Anyway, though, as well as the GARM members, CVS Health, Mars, Unilever, CVS Health, and Unilever and Mars did not respond to anybody's request for comment. Basically, it all comes after Musk tweeted in early July that the company was going to take legal action against the perpetrators and collaborators of an alleged massive advertising boycott. So basically, they're suing all these companies, the trade group here, for not spending money on X. And I mean, the level of silliness of this has reached new heights to me. But what is your take?
Well, first of all, I can't, and I don't know why this is. Maybe it was on whatever episode we did, but every time I see Yaccarino right now, I think of the song Amadeus, because I go Yaccarino, 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 and I just can't get it out of my head. And now it's not. Now you're gonna wake up and you're gonna be like Yaccarino, Yaccarino.
You don't. So how come you don't think of Macarena? That's what I want.
Oh, well, now there's gonna be an earworm that I'm not gonna be able to.
There you go.
Get. Yeah, we'll have to call
Macarena,
RFK Jr. about that.
Macarena, Yaccarino.
I would say that this is one of the most idiotic things I've ever seen.
It's pretty good.
Why?
Yeah.
And why, when you totally screw up your own business, why is there someone else to blame?
Yeah.
And I'm okay. I'm sure this has been happening for years or decades or hundreds of years, and I just haven't noticed. But it just seems more and more that there are very powerful people in the world that just, whatever happens, there's someone else to blame. Why isn't it
That's right.
Why isn't it the fact that that you fired most of your team, that you changed your moderation policies, that you have a cesspool of information on your platform right now that you don't care anything about, that is even inciting riots in some cases, but yet it's always somebody else's fault?
Yes.
Why? I don't get it. So in this case, see, he's not going to fix his business model. So why not? Oh, I'm the victim. I don't have more than $500 billion. Feel bad for me. And all you people, it's a whole conspiracy against me. I don't know what Musk is doing. It's stupid.
It's an amazing thing. What I can't figure out is what Linda Yaccarino is doing.
She sold her soul.
The video, I kept expecting her to sort of blink in Morse code that she's being held hostage or something in the video that she was making, because it's just, I mean, the video is hard to watch.
Why would somebody make everyone listening to this has a job or a role or a career in some way. Why would you put everything you've been as a professional person in your particular career? In this case, she's been in advertising forever. She's had some amazing posts. She's done some amazing things. Why would she throw all that away and say, I'm going to be the stooge for this dude? I don't.
Money.
There's got to be.
Money plays a big role in it. I mean,
it's not,
honestly,
it's not worth it. Linda, it's not worth Linda.
No,
it's not worth it.
You should leave. I would agree. I would agree that
twice
it's not worth it. But
if you don't feel safe.
A lot of people have done worse for money, right? That's, I mean, the money is probably pretty good as where she sits, and honestly, it's, other than having to look like an idiot, which is in my mind a pretty big thing, but it may not in her mind, right? Having to look like a stooge, it's probably a pretty easy job. there's not much to do, right? Other than sort of run around and say nice things about Elon and the platform. That's kind of her whole job, is just to run around and say nice things.
It's the
And
movie where the guy says it's a pride. Every day I wake up and it's a pride swallowing siege.
yeah, the Parenthood. Yeah, it's so good. I love that movie. I love that movie. Pride swallowing siege. Yeah.
That's it. She gets up in the morning, she's feeling good, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden she's like, "Oh my god, I got to do this again today. This is terrible." And
Well,
does anything
in the video, she's got a necklace, two necklaces, in fact. The top one says mama, and then the bottom one says free speech. So it literally is, if you read them together, it's mama free speech. Which, I mean, I put out on Threads today. I was like, we have now reached the episode where X becomes tchotchkes from Office Space, and Elon is now mandating that everybody have 3 or 4 pieces of flair, right? So it's just
not enough flair.
not enough.
By the
flair.
way, might have been Jennifer Aniston's best movie ever.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, a lot of
I
people
love
don't
that
know she
movie.
was in that, but she was the one that didn't have enough. She wasn't wearing
didn't have enough flair.
She had the
Yeah.
minimum amount of flair.
Minimum amount of flair is exactly
Yeah.
right.
Does
I need
anything
5
happen with
pieces of
this
flair.
before we move on? Like, is this just this?
No, other
silly,
than they lose. I mean, it'll get
just a PR thing.
Yeah, they've lost the PR war for sure, but they'll either lose if it even gets that far. I mean, I just can't even see it being.
I think the best way to get advertisers back on the platform is to sue them. I think that
that's right.
absolutely
The
works
best way
every
best
time.
way to make people want to spend money with you is to sue them. That's really it.
It
Well,
shows.
and speaking of which, the next story that we can cover here is that, if you advertise on X, well, you're going to advertise there whether you want to or not. This one is basically also coming from Marketing Brew. And the headline is that advertisers say that their Google ads are now showing up on X. And why might that be? The article opens up by saying, in the nearly 2 years since Elon bought the social media platform, many major brands have opted to avoid showing ads on their site altogether. Other advertisers are ending up on the platform, however, without even realizing it. 2 advertisers said they were surprised to learn that ads for their businesses were running on X after Marketing Brew saw the ads and reached out to them. The ads ended up on the platform thanks to a partnership between X and Google announced last fall that places some Google ads on X's main feed. They're easy to spot because the ads don't contain the typical like and or repost options that appear below other posts and advertisements on the platform. In the span of about 10 days, Marketing Brew saw these types of ads for several companies running within X's For You feed. Users have said the ads on the platform, formerly known as Twitter, stick out like a sore thumb, which I guess in a weird way is a good thing. And their placement has caused some confusion from advertisers who aren't big on the platform. Goes on to talk about how you can opt out of this, but you have to opt out. Otherwise, you are considered opted in. And again, just awful, but there we are, I guess.
Well, yeah, if Google's going to change something, this should be an opt-in, but it never has been.
No,
It's
it never
always
has been. For other other platforms they make deals with, it's never been
It's
like
always
they
an
don't
opt-in.
email
You're like,
everybody and say, hey, by the way, we're adding X platform, literally. And would you like to make sure that your ads appear there? No, they just add them, and then you can go, later on you can say, you can go in and edit your campaigns and not choose to be on particular platforms.
So I think the most important thing is if you're using Google ads in their network, you need to go in and look where you're being served, because you might not want to be on certain networks. And by the way, X may be the most tame. You might be on some other networks that you really don't want to be
Well,
on.
that's been a problem for a long time. Adjacencies and brand safety with Google ads has always been an issue. They've done a lot of work over the last few years to quell some of that brand safety issue by not allowing certain categories of platforms. But it's still an issue where you can very easily end up on a blog that's, talking about Nazis or whatever, right? I mean, there's all kinds of issues there.
So, and so the recommendation is go check out.
Go look.
Where
Go check it out.
Served. Yeah, go check so this doesn't happen. Yeah, this is unfortunate. It's just It's basically a money
Well,
grab because
yeah.
I don't think they're seeing it because of the way these ads are being served on X. It's not doing anybody any good. I mean, the one that they used is the Old World Pizza Truck one. Hasn't even posted on X in a decade. They
Right.
don't have. There's nothing there. There's nothing contextual about that to help them get business from that. So it's just
What would be interesting to me would be if, and I don't, and this is where my ignorance of advertising across the network comes in terms of the analytics you get. I don't remember this being um, a metric, but it may be, and so I may be getting this completely wrong. But I would be interested to know for those that sort of go in and start to look at this, if they see that it's actually providing value. In other words, they are getting, all of a sudden you see your ads performing better. And then you realize that it's because they're showing up on X that they're performing better, because they do stick out and because they are more prominent.
Yep.
It would be interesting to understand that. I mean, I would still turn them off because just X turns me off, but it would be really interesting to understand where the performance actually sits for different kinds of brands.
No, you're right. I mean, it's all about performance, right?
Yeah, of course.
But
That's why you're doing
let's
Google
just
ads,
say-
right?
Let's just say
Yeah.
you've got an advertising agreement with Google, but then you're shown on X. If X sues its advertisers, do you get sued because you flow through the Google network? That's
Yeah.
try to figure that
Well,
one
only
out.
only if you're part of GARM or the WFA, the World
GARM,
Wrestling
WFA.
Federation.
Oh, I
for
love the
advertisers.
bantamweight match
Yes.
in the WFA was fantastic.
You get a belt.
WFA Slam that came to town was just my favorite ever.
You get a belt.
You look at my WFA belt.
I can already see sort of see, somebody should do a video. That would be a great video for them to do. Anyway,
It would be a very niche.
we should be in
targeted
marketing. We should
video.
get into marketing is what we should
We
do.
should, yeah. I'm
You
never
know.
getting into marketing. Terrible.
Okay.
Don't do it.
We're going to get to our winners and losers segment here, where Joe and I look back at the week in marketing and pick either a big winner in marketing or someone who is a loser with a capital L.
La loser.
Yeah, I mean, there's many losers this week, but you want to go first or shall I go
Sure.
first?
I'm happy to go first. I'll just
Yeah,
throw
you
up this article really quickly from military.com, which has been around for 25 years. Did not realize this.
Oh, yeah.
The arm,
it's a great site. I used to use this site. Very quick story. Way back in the day, I was helping a video game company build a video game for this exact kind of thing, recruitment, right? So they were building the U.S. Army was building a video game, which was going to be a first-person shooter for basically to help recruit new recruits into the Army. Yeah. And it was really cool because you couldn't use your, the rules were very strict about the way you use your gun and the way that the battles and there were tests and all these kinds of things. And it was meant to sort of counter program the other first person shooters out there and provide the responsible way. And then you would want to become an Army person. And it was pretty good. I since left the company after starting the project, but it was military.com that helped us sort of put some of the promotion together here. So anyway.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So real quick, the side note to this, or the reason why this stuff happens, is that the Army's recruitment efforts have been way down, I guess, at historic lows. They've been having trouble recruiting people into the Army. And they did this deal, $11 million deal with The Rock and the UFL to try to help on enlistment. And the UFL is the new United Football League that started last year. Didn't do very well, but I think they're going to do another. Well, it does all the specifics of The Rock didn't do enough social media mentions or it didn't work out. And the article actually goes on to say that they actually, I don't know, I wanted to find out why, but they said they lost 38 recruits from this effort. I don't know how that happened, but they said they spent this anywhere between $6 and $11 million and they lost a recruitment. So whatever happened. But I just wanted to talk. This is what gets me, though. The Army and the armed forces have been doing big promotional deals with professional sports for a long, long time. And from everything
right.
that I've read and seen, it has not worked. For most cases, it does not work. You might go to the between the first and second quarter deals that they have with the NFL, where they play Proud to Be an American. That's a sponsored deal. Everybody stands up. It's a really, really nice effort promoting veterans. So that's a paid deal as well. But from everything that I've read, it's not helping with recruitment. Maybe they should try something else. They keep going back to the same well. Oh, maybe because Rock is involved in this one, but they go back to sports over and over again, and it is not helping with recruitment. So much so that they're at an all-time low. Maybe it's time to try something new. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Well, and because of my experience here, I actually know a little bit about this. And I can tell you that one of the challenges that they have, because look, one of the things that we often, we need to remember is that Professor Galloway says this all the time, right? Whenever you go understand a company that you've looked at from the outside looking in, and you sort of critique them, and once you get on the inside, it's like you realize you're not as smart as you think you are, and they're not as dumb as you thought they were, right? And so they are very smart people at the U.S. Army and the marketing team there, and they're hamstrung, of course, by a lot of things that are just general government challenges, right? In terms of what they can say, what they can't say, what they should say, the brand, they, in so many ways, they have to operate within a very, very tight window. The other thing that works against them is the thing that has worked for decades was a campaign called Be All You Can Be, right? I mean, that was it. When you and I were growing up, that was the Army's marketing campaign. It was Be All You Can Be. There was a song, there were TV commercials.
Future in the Army.
There it is. Right. Be all you can be. Right. Yeah. And it was all about the aspiration of helping young kids pay for college, basically. It was, and all of the well-rounded education that you'd get by joining the Army. And now they had professional programs, and they had all these things that would help you sort of succeed after you got out of the Army. And that really worked. Somewhere along the line in the 90s, as digital came around and as content came around and all that stuff, they started to really branch into some of these things, these other areas, which were trying to attract kids, not necessarily for helping them with their career or helping them get a college education, but rather making the Army cool, right? Making the Army a cool place where you'd want to go hang out. And it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked at all. And so it's a really interesting challenge for them as a marketing strategy to try and figure out how to attract new recruits in today's world, where honestly, armed forces and what's going on in the world, and all of the stuff that's contextual around it, with the way that Army and war and those things are considered, is just it's not a cool thing, right? It's just not, let's just be honest, just not a cool thing. It's that, kids don't want to be going overseas and flying helicopters and shooting missiles. They'd much rather be playing video games and or becoming Mark Zuckerberg. So it's a really challenging.
Well, I don't know if I think that to your point about them not being allowed or restricted to do and say certain things is the issue. Because if they would have taken, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but if they started to do what the Olympians are doing, and they're creating content around that, if you had some people, and if you had military creators as part of the drill instructors, or in wherever they're at in the world, or they're talking about some of the tough times, or you can get to some of those really tough, difficult things. That's going to attract the right group of people. They're just I don't say they're unwilling, but because they have certain communication rules in place, they're not able to do that. I think if they
they are doing it. I mean, it's not that they're not doing that. They are definitely doing that. They have all sorts of people that are doing selfies and doing influencer marketing and social media and all that kind of. It's like those things are there. I mean,
are they really doing the behind the scenes stuff?
What's that?
Are they really doing the behind the scenes stuff? Like,
Well, I mean, you can only do so much, right? This is again where you get to the
Well-
level of things you can do and things you can't do because you're in the army, right? You're in the military, right? Which gets, it's hard these days to not, you know, there's in today's world we have such a political lens put over the world of the armed forces that it's really hard for them to do, quote unquote fun things, and I know that's a weird word to use, but to do fun social media engagement things because this is where it is, right? I mean, it's where
but I
we
don't think
are.
is I guess I would say I think we're in agreement. But it's not. I don't think they should show the fun things. I think they should show the hard things, the difficult things, the tragic things. That's I think that's where you're believing in a cause. You're fighting for a mission. I don't know if they can show
I
those
don't
things.
disagree with that at all. Yeah.
That's what they need to show. They don't need to show somebody that is on leave going somewhere and having a good time, and the
Yeah.
relation is that person's in the army. They don't want that. What they want is I just got done with this mission, and I know that for many reasons they can't show that, but that's what would attract the audience they're looking for.
It's honestly, it's the be all you can be.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
yeah.
That would be the message of Be All You Can Be today, and that's where I think they need to go. But I don't know how they get there with the current regulations in place.
Yeah.
For what you
Agreed.
said. So, all right,
Agreed.
what do you got?
All right. So I am going to, speaking of government, I'm going to my winner this week. And it's been the winner for the last couple of weeks since everything went down is Kamala's the campaign social media strategy. It is in fuego. I mean, that they are just doing so well. It's and I'm speaking not from a political standpoint, although my feelings on this matter are pretty well known, but just literally just from a marketing perspective, this is genius level stuff. I mean, the way that they have pivoted and messaged and been consistent about that messaging, and the way that they're sort of using messaging in a really unique way across different social media channels and positioning and leaning into the weird stuff is it's so good. I mean, it is really so good what they've been able to do with the whole brat thing, with the whole falling from coconut, leveraging old video of Kamala, leveraging what's going on now with the whole dad vibe of Waltz. It's masterclass level social media marketing. And so, and again, I'm glad to see it, but it's from a marketing perspective, there are tons of lessons to learn here. Just watch it, sit back and watch it and learn from the way that they're doing it, because it's quite impressive.
Well, this is the thing, and it's almost the theme of the show. They're helping to guide a lot of the creators out there and build these things, and they're there for support. And a lot of it's not necessarily coming from them.
Right.
And that's the
exactly
brilliance
right.
of it. Like the Olympic Committee, when you talk about the power of the Olympics and all they're doing, they have creators, and they are giving all these resources to people so that they can go tell their stories.
That's right.
And instead of this, we have this campaign message, and we are going to advertise our way to the top.
That's right.
It doesn't work as well, and it's interesting.
They're leaning into the memes. It's so good. Yeah.
It's really incredible to see. This is, I mean, it was almost like when Obama was elected, and you saw this. It was kind of the first social media election to happen. This is a whole different thing where. And I'm not on TikTok. I'm sort of just following along through what I'm reading. But it seems like this is the election where TikTok might help get somebody elected that maybe China doesn't want. I have no idea. I have no idea. This is crazy.
Yeah. No, well, it'll be fascinating to watch, and we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to. Well, it's time now. We can talk about. We can talk about Rants and Raves, where Joe and I go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave over something that makes us feel like the stock market this week, or boy, it's been volatile this week. It's been crazy.
As we're doing this, I think it's up 550 points, but yesterday it was up 400 points and then down 300 points. It's crazy. It gets all the froth out.
Do you think you know way more about this than I do? Do you think it feels to me like so much of retail trading now is, of course, guys like you and me, right? Us, right? And then, but the majority, like 98% of trading actually happens algorithmically with now AI and automation, and that happens at the big trading houses. Do you think that's part of this? Is that you get into sort of a cycle of the sort of more algorithmic AI automated trading thing that happens, pulling,
Yes.
tenths of pennies off of things and getting, doing that kind of stuff. Is that what
I
we're
think the
seeing here?
no, I think the algorithms have a huge reason why you get some of these ups and downs, because you see a trend, and as soon as that trend hit, you have all these different programs that file onto that and sell, or buy. So
Right.
that's where you get the quick up and quick down. You see it in Bitcoin too. It's just quick up and quick down. Now, to your point about retail investing, we have no impact on the market.
Right.
Any retail
That
investor,
was my
nothing.
point,
Like
really.
we're like 0.1%, and it doesn't do anything. So
Right.
it's why that's why the GameStop thing was so crazy, because they're all like, how can individuals have that much power with that little capital? It shouldn't happen. So in my conspiracy theory, it didn't happen. There were other institutions piling on to
Well, I
that
think they've shown
winning.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
think if
was
you,
not the individuals. The individuals started the crusade, if you will, but
that's
it was
right.
big money behind that effort, and they were making bets on both sides there. So don't think it was like, and then
No,
when you go watch the movie, you're like, oh, yay to the individual investor, and I'm like, we don't have any power.
no.
There's
Well,
nothing
it's
there.
funny. It's funny you mentioned that, because I had read, I mean, when it was all going down, I followed the sort of the Reddit subreddit on the GameStop stuff, and the some of the players that were even mentioned in the movie were in that subreddit talking, and they were saying that they were all complaining that some of the big funds and some of the big trading companies were in there and were getting special treatment, right? Because of the,
Yeah.
because of the shorts and everything. And it's like, and they were doing the math, and they were like, the, and I'm going to get this wrong because I'm not enough of a geek to understand this stuff, but basically they were saying, like, 450% of the stock is now allocated, right, in some weird
Oh,
way,
and the
right?
short, yeah,
Yeah, with
short
the
sellers.
shorts, and it's like it just can't be that way, right? You just can't. It can't. There's no reality here, and so they were saying that the big companies had a lock on this thing, and were basically manipulating it and using the individual retailers as, as sort of guinea pigs here.
Yeah, so the advice is, to anyone out there is, you never, when this stuff happens, you never make trades during this kind of thing.
Yeah,
You wait till it you want to make your financial decisions without any emotions at all.
that's
You
right.
have a strategy, hopefully you're well diversified, and then you going into any of these events, you feel, because if something is way up, there should be something else in your portfolio that's way down, and vice versa,
Yeah,
so that you're always protected in some way. So
yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
Why don't you go first, and because I know what you're going to say, and then I'll follow up on what you're saying with my commentary.
Oh, great. Yeah. So I'm just, mine's really quick, but although we can talk a little bit about this, because there's a lot of news coming out around this, and there is even a news item that we can link in the show notes to there's a New York Times article that talks about the level of influencers in the social media game that's being played with at the Olympics. But basically, I was going to say, you asked me. I mean, it was days before the Olympics started, and you asked me. You said, "Are you excited for the Olympics?" And I said, "No, I couldn't even be less interested." And it was true. I was not interested at all. I hadn't seen a lot of marketing for it. I hadn't seen a lot of advertising for it, and I'm a pretty heavy media consumer guy, and just didn't. It didn't even really register with me. Like, I didn't know any of the players, and usually the TV has, they tell you the stories of the athletes and where they come from and their hometown and the whole thing. And I was kind of into that, and that would get me excited for following some of the players and the Olympians through their goals and stuff. And so this year, I turned it on, started watching it, watched the opening ceremony, and it was nice. It was lovely. And I was like, okay. And then I started watching it. And then basically through TikTok and other social media, I started getting myself introduced, Leanna Mayer, and so many of the other, the pommel horse guy, I can't remember his name, but the pommel horse guy who was like the specialist who would come in and who basically brought them gold, and all of their TikToks, their sort of self-created influencer content was great. It was so good. It was so wonderful. And it got me totally invested. And then as I started getting invested in watching the women's rugby team, I watched the men's rugby team. I watched then, the swimming, and I have to say this Olympics has been my favorite Olympics in, I can't even imagine how long, because I got invested in it. And it was really fun to see and hear real stories coming out of social media that were fun and heartwarming and also funny and engaging. And it was just I thought it was just a great experience. So it's a big rave for me.
It's really, I'm impressed with what NBC did initially to recruit. They recruited 27 pretty decent creators on 4 different platforms to do from that standpoint. But then also these athletes are all savvy creators themselves.
Yeah.
And they're all just telling their stories. They're here. The one guy that's loved the muffins that every morning would share the different muffins in the thing, and the other one talking about, here's where I have to sleep every night, and just telling those. And that's the thing I want for the Army. Like, tell those stories. This is cramped. This is tough. It's whatever. It gets people involved in it. They're real life stories, and you can empathize with those. And anyways, I just thought that they've done such a great job. I agree with you. I've heard so many more people. And I think the difference in a lot of cases is in the 2020 Olympics, which happened in 2021, there were no audiences, and you didn't have all those creators there.
Right. That's right.
You didn't have the level up that you've seen in content creation that you do from the Olympians this year that you did 3 years ago. Yeah. So I can only imagine that this is going to keep escalating, where you have more and more. And it's funny, like, you probably saw something on TikTok, and then I don't know, are you watching it on Peacock, or are you just watching it on your phone? Like, are you watching the things on?
We watch it on, we're watching it NBC at night on NBC typically. Yeah.
Wrap up. So so social is moving you to television. Yeah. It's interesting the way that works, and vice versa, and they play off each other.
Yeah. I mean, I would catch some of the more, I guess, niche things that weren't covered. But the whole thing about the guy, the couple from Turkey who, this sort of Gen Xer in his t-shirt,
and
with the
memes that are coming out.
You would never watch target shooting. I mean, target shooting is you would never watch target shooting, but it became like a thing, right? It was, it was so wonderful. Yeah. To see all that get covered. Yeah.
And by the way, we're biased over the whole social media content creation thing, but you do have to realize that it was in Tokyo last time, and the time difference makes a big deal.
It does make a big difference.
We're only 5 hours difference here in the East.
That's right.
So we can get, like, if I turn it on at 3:00 in the afternoon, I can watch, I can watch the U.S. basketball team, or I can watch track and field, and it's live.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a big difference. So it's going to be in LA in 4 years, right?
I know.
So that should be. Yeah, are you like going to be even in town for that? Are you gonna?
Well, it's funny that you say that. It's the people here are torn about the whole thing, because we recognize that it's going. I mean, first of all, the level of work that's getting done on city infrastructure is like amazing. It's wonderful. It's fantastic, to see the upgrades that are going to happen to the stadiums and all of the venues, and as well as the roads and everything that are getting done. But it'll be fascinating to see how this city handles an Olympics, a modern Olympics. Yeah,
should be interesting. So mine's really quick, and it builds off of yours. I had a really good conversation this week with 2 financial analysts. We were talking about a lot of the things you and I were just talking about, but I started to ask. They work for a very large company, and I just asked them. I'm like, we were talking about how they can differentiate in their marketing and whatever. And I just asked them what they do. Like, do they post on social media? Do they post on Facebook? Like, what do they do themselves in order to show their own expertise? And they said that their process is so cumbersome, where if they want to post something, it takes about 10 days for them to, 2 days for them to get approval back that they can post it. Yeah. They can't just post something on LinkedIn. It has to be vetted, even on their personal
Totally.
LinkedIn account. So from that, or they could take from an already approved basket of content and post that and try to be,
Yeah.
The point is that those companies that have those types of regulations and those types of communication rules are going to be at a significant disadvantage if they can't go out there and differentiate and do all the things that that those Olympians are doing right now. They're talking about things good and bad, but they're sharing it. They're doing it in real time. It's themselves, it's their own individuals. And I think from even a financial standpoint, if you say, I had this, tell your own story and what you're doing and the struggles that you're dealing with, I think it would help them and their company overall, but they're not even at a point where they can make that happen. So for those of you that are, I think the next level of content marketing is all about your internal influencers and what you can do to make sure it's as easy as possible for those employees to communicate. There's your best form of marketing. And I don't think a lot of companies know that right now. So now is the time to really start putting the processes in place so that you can get those impediments out of the way, that they can communicate and ultimately be the marketers you want them to be. So that's my take.
Yeah. I told you my story about I've had many financial services clients that have this problem, but I've told you my story, my social media story about I worked with one institutional financial services company. And when I first went in there and talked to them, they told me it was for them, it was 2 weeks to be able to tweet, because every tweet had to go through regulatory and compliance.
2 weeks.
And they had to go, so every tweet would go through that, and they would tweet 2 weeks later. And basically we did some work and we talked about it and we sort of put in a new workflow and a process, and we got it down to 3 days, right? So from 2 weeks to 3 days, and everybody was like super happy. They were like super happy. So we meet for this meeting, and somebody brings in some cupcakes to celebrate the fact that we have this now ability to tweet in 3 days. And there were little Twitter cupcakes with the little blue, the bird and the blue icing and the blue bird. And basically somebody said, wait a minute, has legal actually signed off on the use of the logo on these cupcakes? So, and they were serious. This was not a joke. They were serious.
Oh my God. Yeah, I believe
they hadn't gotten approval to use the Twitter logo and they were like, nobody take any pictures. Nobody. So, and I said, well, we should just eat the evidence is what I think we should do.
Yeah. I can understand it with financial, with healthcare, where you've got serious regulations. But when you get to like the whole Chick-fil-A example, and you got somebody that's doing, it's like you got to lean in and provide some direction and not just say no.
Well,
you could do some things.
I will tell you from experience, most of the companies, most of the financial services companies, investment firms especially, the legal, the sort of regulatory, self-regulatory policies that they have are way more stringent than actual regulatory policies that they need to comply with. And so it's really it's working with those professionals, the regulatory and compliance professionals, to really create a process to be able to do this. And it's possible. It absolutely is possible.
So what do you got going on this week?
This week is work. It's hot here in LA, so there's not a lot of outside stuff to do. So it's a lot of client work. A lot of stuff. I'm getting tons of presentations ready, because September is going to be busy with traveling and speaking and doing all sorts of stuff. So working on presentations mostly.
Very good. We're going to see the Savannah Bananas play here in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, very nice. Saturday. I'm going to see the Cowboys play this weekend. Yeah. So
it's that time. And we preseason and we have and we've decided on our date.
That's what we did.
What is the date going to be? The 23rd.
I was going to say it's a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Well, we're going to record it on the 22nd, so we'll see. But we will go ahead and do our special NFL.
That's right.
Prediction show.
It'll be short, everybody. It'll be short. And
where someone will be incredibly wrong.
It'll be labeled.
Someone will be really right. That's all I have to say.
Our special NFL episode. There you go.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. All right. I'm out.
All right. Very good. And thank you all for making it this far. We so appreciate you. And we got a regular show coming up next week. And then, of course, we've got some special episodes coming up. But in the meantime, before we see you next week, remember, everybody, it's your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week on This Old Marketing.
Hey, thanks a lot for making it this far in this week's episode, and thank you all for being a part of This Old Marketing. You can check out all the show notes of what we talked about today at thisoldmarketing.com, and it's also where you can leave us a review or a voicemail. We need those reviews and comments on whichever platform you follow us on. And if you haven't followed the podcast, please go do that and make sure you catch the latest and greatest episodes every Friday morning. We're on Apple and Spotify and all your other favorite podcatchers, of course, but we'd love it if you went over and subscribe to us on YouTube. That's right, YouTube. youtube.com/@thisoldmarketing. We'll see you again next week, folks, with another episode of This Old Marketing.